I'll ask everyone to take their seats and we'll welcome to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of Toowoomba Regional Council. This meeting is open to the public and will also be live streamed. I would like to thank those of you who are in the room with us today and acknowledge anyone watching via Council's social media channels. I remind councillors to click join meeting in board view. In opening the meeting and acknowledgement of the traditional owners, I acknowledge the Aboriginal parties whose song lines traverse these lands we meet on today, the Western Waka Waka and the Oka Waka Gubbawa and Jawa peoples, and pay respects to the elders past, present and emerging, for they hold the knowledge and rich traditions, bold ambitions of Australia's first people. Attendance, including apologies, leave and absence, declarations of conflicts of interest. Apologies, nil advised. Have you got your hand up? No. Noting leave of absence of Councillor Carol Taylor and Rebecca Vonov. No resolution required. Declaration prescribed conflicts of interest, nil advised. Declarations declarable conflict of interest, Councillor Bill Carlin.
Thanks, Chair. I wished, in relation to item number 3 of the Planning and Development Committee, 11th of November today, I wish to inform the meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in this matter as defined in section 150EN of the Local Government Act 2009. The nature of my interest is as follows. This declarable conflict of interest arises because I live within reasonable proximity to the Central Highfields Master Plan site owned by Council. I wish to participate in the decision in relation to this matter. I acknowledge that eligible councillors must now determine, pursuant to section 150ES of the Local Government Act 2009, whether I, 1, may participate in the decision about the matter, including by voting on the matter. 2, must leave the meeting, including any area set aside for the public, and stay away from the meeting while the eligible councillors discuss and vote on the matter. 3, may participate in the decision about the matter, subject to conditions.
Mayor Jeffrey.
Thanks very much, Chair. Through you to Councillor Bill. Councillor Bill, this is not the first time we've done this. Has anything changed since the last time you made the declaration and we voted to allow you to stay in the room and vote on the matter?
No, it's just simply the fact that we're at the point where we're doing a master plan, so I'm prudent that I put it before Council, but
thank you for that.
Situation hasn't changed.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Given that that is the case and the Council has been involved in all discussions and decisions at this point, I see no reason why Councillor Carl can't stay in the room, participate in the discussion and vote on the matter for reasons of prior declarations and the Council's decision to allow him to do exactly that. So happy to move that it stays in the room and allowed to vote on the matter.
Okay, I'll ask for a vote. Second. All those in favour? Item 3, adoption of the Central Highlands Master Plan, October 2025. I'll hand over to Ed Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I will take the report as read, but I'll draw the councillors to a few key points, if I may. The updated 2025 master plan reflects 6 years worth of change and growth within the Highfields area since the 2018 purchase. The 2025 Central Highfields master plan document is an evolution of the previous structure planning, which maintains the original intent for the site, but has also maintained and made some improvements to align with the feedback that we received through the engagement effort. It has absolutely incorporated expert economic advice advice, and very thankful for the work that was done by a number of parties within that, as well as the market sounding advice that Council received from Jones Lang LaSalle. It incorporated, as I touched on before, community consultation comprising multiple in-person sessions in early 2025, over 220 online submissions, and engagement with key stakeholder groups such as the Highfield Chamber of Commerce. I can confirm that there's sufficient land area planned for retail and commercial land uses over the next 20 years and beyond, and the mixed use area will provide even further opportunities for expansion of that into the long term. This is balanced with sufficient land area for low medium density residential dwelling offerings, which will bring vibrancy and activation to the land. The community outcomes are absolutely still paramount, with a very large public open space, civic square and public transport node incorporated within the master plan. And I'll finalise by saying that the 2025 update is the first step needed to inform the following steps, such as divestment strategies and being reflected within the new Toowoomba Regional Council planning scheme. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor. There may be questions, Chair, but I am happy to move the recommendation when the time comes.
Does anyone wish to listen?
Thank you, Chair. Through you, thank you, GM Ed. Should the master plan be adopted today, how will Council communicate the stages of implementation to assure the residents that are concerned about issues or possible issues going forward?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the Chair, in terms of next steps, what we'd look to do should the master plan as tabled be adopted, there begins a body of work in terms of how we bring that to life. Be that site works, be that planning for the war memorial and the community, the place of interest associated with that. All of those discrete projects within it would undergo, I guess, the usual level of engagement that you'd expect for any project of council. And they'll be determined as we work through, well, how do we begin to bring this to life, so to speak, with a prioritisation alongside budgets, operational considerations and everything else that typically follows through that process. So it'd be, I guess, a BAU process in terms of enlivening with engagement, particularly around the key aspects of community interest.
Councillor Tim McDonald.
Thank you, Chair. I was just very happy to second the Mayor's motion.
Thank you. Do we need to go into debate? All in favour?
Well, just a question. Sorry.
Question?
Chair, to the GM. You may have covered it in your preliminary remarks, but in terms of what we see in the material before us, is that fixed hard and fast for the future, or can you describe how things might develop in the normal course in terms of what is there? You're not a prophet, but you are a professional, and you may cast some help for us.
Thank you, Councillor. Through the Chair, I've been called many things, but a prophet is not one, so I'll add that to the list. I guess it's as fixed as any planning process is what I would say. That is to say that it is our best guess today, and based on the technical advice of our supporting economists, urban designers, planners, all of the aspects of council and external that have fed into that process. As we reviewed this master plan 6 years after the first version, I would anticipate in future, and responsive to changes within the local context or changes within the macro retail economic market or any other sort of global shift, I guess, would enliven a reason to just have another look and review things. So as fixed as it can be in planning terms.
Following on, it's been said, I think, that the market demand will be a critical factor in what might happen in the short term and the long term. That's the case. Yep, thank you.
Is there any more questions? If there are no more questions, I'll read the motion and
I might just make a comment, if I could, as the mover of the motion, if that's okay, Chair. Just to simply applaud the community, first and foremost, on how they've engaged with council. Many thousands of people have actually been involved in this in one way, shape or form, and stakeholder groups, as you've mentioned, GM Ed, Highfields Chamber of Commerce, and acknowledging Lisa Deeth here today, and those who've gone before Lisa, thinking that this started back in 2017, and in fact before then, when the encouragement was given to council to purchase this block of land for future development of a Highfields town centre. So I think in doing so and moving and thankfully, and I thank Councillor McMahon for seconding the motion, I just wanted to place on record the council's thanks to the community and to our officers in the way in which we've worked through this. We should never let perfection get in the road of progress. And I think the question that Councillor Shine asked was a very good one, and your answer was equally as good, Ed, in regard to this is a point in time. Market will determine what happens in this place. However, the consultation that's taken to get us to this point is one in which councillors I know have been highly engaged in and making sure that everyone is heard. And I thank the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much to the Highfields Chamber, to Lisa and your team, and to also the Highfields Heart, who have also come on board with conversations in the latter stages to ensure that the future that they want to see is the future we all want to see. And I think that needs to be applauded. So thank you to those that are not only in the gallery, but those who are watching online and potentially those that will only hear about this in the days to come. We do appreciate the work, and in doing so, happy for you to read the motion out again, Chair, but more than happy to throw our support behind it and get it moving as quickly as we can for the community.
the motion that Council adopts the Central Highfields Master Plan October 2025, Attachment 1, as the strategic framework for land use planning and infrastructure coordination to guide future development and investment within the Central Highfields precinct. All those in favour? It is unanimous. Everyone? Yes. We'll move on to item 4, which is the Toowoomba Regional Futures Program, Toowoomba Regional Planning Scheme. I'll hand over to Ed.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, councillors. I'll take the report as read and the attachments as well as being read. This report does respond to the resolution of the 15th of July of this year and outlines a refocused delivery approach and resourcing strategy for the Toowoomba Region Futures Planning Scheme, one of Council's most significant strategic priorities under the Toowoomba Region Futures Program. The revised approach strengthens project governance, delivery capability, industry and community confidence, as well as providing accountability for delivery. It includes an updated project management plan, the establishment of a policy and technical advice reference group, an extensive communication strategy, and a targeted procurement plan to secure the specialist capability needed to complete the outstanding work. The report also addresses the progression of an interim amendment to the Local Government Infrastructure Plan to align with the overall TRF program delivery. These refinements reflect the outcomes of recent internal and external reviews, ensuring the delivery framework is robust, transparent, and fully compliant with the requirements of the Planning Act, as well as Minister's guidelines and rules. Together, this strategy and these measures provide a clear and achievable pathway to progress the planning scheme and LGIP to drive the delivery of Council's long-term strategic planning obligations and ambitions. Overall, this report seeks Council's endorsement for the updated framework to position the TRF program, the planning scheme project, and the LGIP to successfully deliver a contemporary, well-governed and future-focused planning framework that supports sustainable growth, investment confidence, and the ongoing livability of the Toowoomba region. Thank you.
Attachments 1, 3 and 4 are confidential. Any discussions on these attachments will need to be in closed session. attachments 1 and 3 will be replaced by tabled attachments 6 and 7 and remain confidential. Is there any need to discuss? Is there any questions? No? Councillor Tim?
Chair, thank you. Good afternoon, Ed, CEO and your team. I remember the day very well when I was very new in this job in 2025, and we held a meeting in our COVID chambers, which is downstairs, with all of the developers in town, and basically said we were looking at a 2024 completion date, to which I think I shared Councillor Melissa's position as two first day councillors and saying, that's ridiculous, you couldn't possibly need 4 years. Yet here we are 5 years later, and there is still a very long road ahead of us. So I wonder if you could, and I didn't want to point to anything because there's something confidential, but Ed, if you could outline for the community as best as can be said right now what that roadmap looks like, and any dates you'd like to give. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Councillor. That roadmap and delivery program reflects the prioritisation that we've given this project. It is, for the Planning and Development Services Group, the #1 project to deliver at pace and with a robust and well-tested governance framework to assist in the creation of the required policy positions that need considering within the future planning scheme, but as well as contractor management, generalised project management and project accountability as well. So what we've looked to do, and it's sprinkled between the confidential attachments and the open attachments, is certainly set a target and then work back from that and then work out, well, how do we deliver that with a very robust body of work to support that, a detailed review of what's been done and what's outstanding, and then very much casting our minds to how we would deliver those outstanding works.
No, thank you for that. And I look forward to it, but I thank you for saying it's your priority in the planning team, and it's great to have you on board. And I think since I've been in the place branch, which is strategic planning this term, it's great to have a new manager of that department starting today. I would also like to acknowledge, if I could, as the councillor in the place branch, that Hayley and her team have been doing a tremendous job working with us for a very long time. And I now don't consider myself as naive as the mountain of work needed. Our old planning scheme is great, but it is severely out of date, and I look forward to working with you and your team, as do the people around this table, to deliver something excellent with the parameters that we've been given. So thank you very much for that. And Chair, I'm very happy to move this recommendation, please.
Councillor Trevor Mentor.
My question was basically the same as Councillor Tim's, and GM Ed's basically answered that. But whilst I'm here, I'd happily second Councillor Tim's motion of moving this town plan.
Okay.
Thanks, Chair. Just a question through you to General Manager Ed. Attachment 5. Just for, I guess, the sake of public, in the delegations register to the CEO, either you or Sal, can you give us an idea of what a minor change would entail? A couple of examples.
Thank you, Councillor. Through the chair. It's difficult to entail it without knowing what they might look like. I guess what that does recognise is that over the life cycle of a multi-year project as complicated as this, it is entirely anticipated that scenarios will change, policy positions will evolve, or staff may come and go as well, and contractor management as well as a significant part of this. So it very much recognises that we need to be pretty nimble from a project management plan perspective in how we deliver this program, working it up through the usual project management framework systems that are in place within council and aligning ourselves to that. It is our intent to provide regular updates to the program as well. So I would anticipate that those minor changes, be it staffing, be it changes to the project board, as we evolve through issues, those sorts of things is probably what we're contemplating. If we're shifting delivery dates or packages of work around, that is absolutely something that we'd be coming back and explaining through the appropriate channels to council in the future.
No, thanks for that, Ed. Appreciate your explanation, and it's clear that it's about the project management and not elements of the draft. Appreciate that. Thanks.
Do we have any more? Councillor Carey.
No, thanks, Chair. Just for the benefit of those in the gallery and online, could you briefly explain why items, attachments 6 and 7 are confidential? That's the planning scheme project management plan and the Toowoomba Region Planning Scheme communication strategy. What's the justification for?
Thank you, Councillor. The justification for it at this point in time is we're likely to go to market for consultant support across a number of works packages, and we need to ensure that we give council an indication of how we're intending to undertake that work. We wouldn't want to signal to the market at this point in time what that may look like, as it would be prejudicial to our interests to do so at this juncture. Subject to the will of the council, we would anticipate that we're going to procurement fairly quickly.
So, any more questions?
Probably not a question, actually, Chair. More an opportunity potentially for the GM to elaborate a little bit further on the establishment of a planning and development policy and technical advice reference group. The report to me reads, there's 3 really positive things in this report to push us forward. Working on the solid foundation that has been done to this point, but actually giving that momentum. The update of the project management plan, critical, the communication strategy, and then this 3rd element. So if you could like to just explain a little bit more about this policy development, technical and advisory group, would be useful. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through the chair. The intent of this group is to assist in council officers in the development of policy recommendations to council that I guess are grounded across, not only in the reality of how does development roll out within Toowoomba, but also what are some of the key issues and some of those key areas of focus that we might want to turn our minds to in the development of a new planning scheme. How do we best get and tap into the knowledge of those within our community to directly assist us in the formulation of ideas, in the formulation of strategies for how we might tackle some of the very wicked problems that planning schemes are required to do so. So the intent of this is to establish a committee that would be confidential in terms of the information that we provide to that committee, because it would directly relate to emerging policy considerations of council. But it's very much intended to seek their feedback, their counsel, to make a better product, and the better product being one that has been informed at key junctures throughout, and not just through the statutory periods for consultation, but those periods where we are contemplating how we might deal with particular policy pieces, to understand across the lens of our community and being fed into by a number of different groups, be they developer groups, environmental groups, community interest groups and the like, to ensure that what we are looking to do is both realistic, achievable and consistent with experience both across the state and across Australia as well. So very high calibre individuals would be looking to appoint to that group to assist and augment our internal delivery capacity and knowledge, as well as the external support of the consultant team.
If this was follow-up, sorry, Chair, if this was to go through next week, what sort of timeframe are you thinking to set that group up?
That would be one of the first actions that we undertake
Okay.
to assist in that. Yeah.
Thank you. And you did mention in your commentary there, locals. Is there scope to actually consider potentially people from outside this region actually on that group as well?
Absolutely. There's a terms of reference that we've looked to establish that would assist us in ensuring that we get the best technical knowledge as well as local intelligence on key issues. So I suspect it would be a mixture of both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Chair.
Do I have any more questions? If I don't, I'll read the motion and go to the vote. To authorise the Chief Executive Officer to deliver the Toowoomba Regional Planning Scheme generally in accordance with the draft Toowoomba Regional Planning Scheme, drafting project management plan. Attachment 6. To delegate authority to Chief Executive Officer to approve minor changes to the draft Toowoomba Regional Planning Scheme, drafting project management plan, attachment 6, as required throughout the Toowoomba Regional Planning Scheme project in accordance with attachment 5. That a report be presented to the Plan Development Committee on a quarterly basis, providing an update on the Toowoomba Regional Planning Scheme project and the draft Toowoomba Regional Planning Scheme drafting project management plan, attachment 6. That the Toowoomba Regional Planning Scheme be drafted and delivered in accordance with the steps outlined in the Chief Executive Notice, attachment 2, and the draft Toowoomba Regional Planning Scheme drafting project management plan, attachment 6. That the new Toowoomba Regional Planning Scheme communication strategy 2025, attachment 7, be implemented generally in accordance with the draft Toowoomba Regional Planning Scheme drafting project management plan, attachment 6, and to approve the making of a new local government infrastructure plan under section 15.1 of part 4 of the Minister's Guidelines and Rules to be prepared in alignment with the delivery of the Toowoomba Regional Planning Scheme. I'll now ask to vote on this, or a mover. Tim and Trevor, you second it? Okay, all those in favour? It is unanimous. We'll now move to item number 6, awarding of a tender for item 5.
We need to close the meeting.
Okay, so closing the meeting to the public. Motion that the meeting be closed to the public in accordance with section 254J3 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to consider the following items on the agenda. Item number 6, confidentially awarding the tender for the former council nursery site 306 Ramsay Street, Middleridge. Second.
Happy to move.
Melissa. Okay. Reasons for closing. Oh, all those in favour of closing. Unanimous. Thank you. motion to be put forward, awarding of tender for former council nursery site 306 Ramsay Street, Mill Ridge. Motion that council approve the disposal of land identified in attachment 2 to the successful tender for residential development purposes. Confirm that the disposal was undertaken in accordance with section 227-1A of Local Government Regulation 2012. Authorise the Chief Executive Officer or his delegate to negotiate the terms of the disposal as part of the contract, generally in accordance with attachment 4 of the confidential report titled Awarding of Tender for Former Council Nursery Site 306 Ramsay Street, Middle Ridge, and to execute all necessary documentation related to the land transfer and allocate the net proceeds from the disposal of land to Council's Development Reserve. Ask for a mover and a seconder. Is that moved by Councillor McMahon, second by Edwina, Councillor Edwina. All those in favour? Unanimous.
Afternoon, councillors. Welcome to the Water and Waste Committee for the month of November. Could I call for a nomination to chair this meeting, given that we have an apology or an absence, Councillor Rebecca, who was to chair this meeting. Any nomination? Councillor Taylor.
I'll nominate Councillor Melissa Taylor.
Councillor Melissa Taylor, nominated to have seconder. Seconder, Councillor Edwina. Those in favour? Motion's carried unanimously. Thanks, Councillor Melissa. I'll vacate the seat.
Okay, well, good afternoon. And I welcome you all to the Water and Waste Committee meeting for the 11th of November 2025. And the red border is on, so we're right. This meeting is open to the public and will also be live streamed. Thank you to those in the room with us today, and I acknowledge everyone watching via Council's social media channels. There's nil advised apologies for today's meeting, noting the leave of absence for Councillors Carol Taylor and Rebecca Von Hoff. No resolution is required, and just noting they are away on council business today. I have nil advised declarations of prescribed conflicts of interest and also nil advised declarations of declarable conflict of interest. But as usual, if anything does arise, please advise. Thank you. We will go to item number 3, the community consultation of alternative domestic waste bin sizes. And I will hand the meeting now to Acting General Manager Mike Brady. Thank you.
Good afternoon, councillors, and it's good being chair this month as acting GM Water and Waste. So appreciate the opportunity. There's 2 reports up today. The first, community consultation of alternate domestic waste bin sizes, and council back in a special meeting in June resolved to look at the opportunities to take forward the upsizing of the yellow lid recycling bin to 360 litres, and also an option of downsizing the general waste bin to 120 litres. So that's been looked at, and some opportunities or options looked at in regards to progressing those initiatives. And today's recommendation talks about going to putting a community consultation plan together to get an understanding of the community's interest in these initiatives, and going forward on that and back to council in a few months' time. I do have, if there's any detailed questions, I do have Natalie Plum, Manager Waste Services, here with us here today. So if there's any particular questions, happy to bring Natalie up as well. Happy, over to you.
Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you, GM Mike. Do I have any questions? Councillor Shine, then Councillor Menteifel.
Thank you, Chair. Just in relation to the consultation process, any idea of what, for how long it would take and what cost it would be to council to undertake that consultation?
Just as Natalie's coming up, there is an intent. We've got a waste strategy coming to council over the coming months, and there's some consultation element, or significant consultation element to that program of works in regards to the waste strategy. And it's looking at sort of integrating the two together. But I'll just hand over to Natalie to add anything further to that.
Good afternoon. As Mike's mentioned, we have some pending community consultation coming up. It's programmed for February, March next year on the draft waste strategy. We intend to bring an information session to council in early December where we're going to outline the community consultation plan and strategy associated with that. So from an efficiency point of view and a cost effectiveness point of view, our recommendation is that we roll in this consultation with that broader community consultation.
Any idea what the total might be at this stage? You may not know at this stage, I don't know.
We're still developing the community consultation plan with CCE, so we'll have some more information in early December when we present that package to council.
Thank you, Councillor Shine. Councillor Menteifel.
Thanks, Chair. From our end, obviously, there could be savings and with our waste facility and all that type of stuff. But going back at the start of the process with the ratepayer, the resident, what would be a changeover cost if somebody's going to go from a bigger bin to a smaller bin? I think it is written in there somewhere. And also retirement villages. That my mother used to live in one. They all got a 240-litre bin. Would those facilities get a cheaper rate to change over all their bins to a smaller if they wanted to? Because, you know, lots of those bins are an eighth filled or something like that.
In response to that, the report outlines that the supply and delivery costs for the 140 bin downsizing to a general waste smaller bin is $109.90, and the upsizing to the 360 litre bin is $172.80. At this point in time, the ongoing rates and utility charges are the same no matter what bin configuration you have, but that's something that council may give consideration to adjusting in future financial years.
Thank you. I think, you know, if you're downsizing, you should be proportioned That's just my layman's
Yeah, I think there'll be
interpretation.
opportunity to discuss any options in regards to pricing, sort of through the discussions with the waste strategy to come through, and whether there's a level of, balancing that with the cost of the bins, against what goes to landfill and what we have to pay there in the state charges. So there's different options to probably consider going forward. At this stage, this is about getting a indication of interest, and that'll help shape how we go forward.
Thank you, Councillor Mantafel. Councillor Farquhar.
Thank you, Chair. Another one for you, Natalie. I do note that we've had quite a lack of uptake, of this so far. Have we engaged any communications at all to date, like went to letterbox drops or anything like that?
Early in 2025, we did do some public consultations, some advertising through our social media channels, and at that point in time, we did have an uptake in some of the bin sizes. So I think we've got about 133 alternate of the 360 bins on configurations in play at the moment, and that correlated with that social media advertising we did. We're obviously advertising the options on our website and through those other opportunities we have, but we haven't done any letter drops at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Chair. Afternoon, Mike. I'm still getting my head around you in this position, but thank you, Natalie. So 72,000 bins and about 117 in this report have taken it up. The numbers are not very high. And I think a little bit of it's got to do with front of mind. When I'm lying in bed at 6:15 and hear the bin truck and run and get it all sorted, I don't often think to myself, gee, I wonder if I should make this smaller or larger. We have a bin. The recommendation is the part that I have a question about. So you're going to go to consultation to better understand factors, and then you're going to bring that back to us scheduled for May. How it often happens in council is you go to the community and say, do you want a large recycling bin? And 100% of people say yes, and then it comes back to us, are we going to look at this is what we have to do, or is it always going to be opt-in? And I'd love to see the metrics around what the consultation is going to look like. So I can ask you that as a question.
Yes, so I guess the point of the consultation is to find out what's driving that behaviour. Is it lack of awareness about availability? Is it a lack of awareness about the environmental outcomes associated with the relationship between waste to landfill and bin sizes? Is it a visual amenity issue? Is it the changeover fee? Is it a lack of incentive on our rates and utilities? There could be a range of reasons why people aren't uptaking the bins, and I guess for us to make an informed decision and informed recommendation to council, we need to understand what's driving their behaviour. But moving forward, it's definitely a conversation that we are having with council around the draft waste strategy and what the appetite is to make this part of our standard offering moving forward. So that's a very good question, and I think a discussion that we'll need to have in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McMahon. Councillor Mantafel.
Just a question through you, Chair, to GM Mike. Have JJ Richards been consulted in all this, as in how they would deliver this or implement this? Because they're the ones who'll be dropping the bins or picking them up, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, the team has obviously a long-term contract, council has, with JJ's, and they're in constant discussion in regards to these sorts of matters. So I'm assured that that sort of conversations are happening pretty regularly.
Thank you. I did send some questions through to you, Natalie, so if there's no other questions from the floor, I did have that question that Councillor Manteifel just asked about the contract structure, so that's been answered, thank you. My next question is, how will the consultation reach diverse demographics? What measures will ensure the campaign is accessible and practical and not just digital? You know, we want to think of our renters, our older residents, the rural areas. How will that look? What will it look like?
As I mentioned, we're rolling in the comms strategy with the broader draft waste strategy consultation. So we've been working with the CCE team on developing a strategy that does reach all elements of our demographics. So we intend to rely on their advice, and we will be utilising all social media, all media channels, mail, email, council website, social media, radio, print media, stickers on our waste vehicles, call flutes at waste facilities, in-person events. We intend to have in-person events and pop-up events in our regional communities, in particular, in community spaces, so we're reaching all elements of the community.
Oh, that's great. I was wondering about pop-up events. That'd be great. Thank you, Natalie. My next question and final one will be, should this consultation go ahead, how will we measure the success? Will it be participation rates, bin swaps, tonnage diverted, or awareness levels? What does it look like? Thank you.
I think in the short term, success will be about changeover rates, but obviously awareness as well, and diversion from landfill will be, I guess, a longer term measure that we can calibrate through audits, etc. So,
thank you, Natalie. Diversion is definitely a large component of that success. Thank you very much. Do I have any other questions? Oh, Councillor Carl.
Thanks, Chair. Through you to Mike or Natalie. The charges for those proposed changes, it looks like that table there, table 2 on page 4 of 7 in board view. It looks like it's a customer charge payable on ordering. Just below, service includes waste collection contract, administrative costs. Can you unpack that for me a bit? Because I think that's going to be a stumbling block for a person out there in the community who says, well, you know, why do I want to upgrade my bin? It's going to cost this much. What are those costs? What entails it? Administrative costs, yeah. There's a contractor cost, because we're midstream in a contract, and there's retooling, delivery to bins, all that sort of stuff. Do trucks change? What is that? What does it look like?
I'll let Natalie go into some detail, but those are the costs as they are today through our fees and charges if you want to change over. As Natalie put forward, there's also the discussions on waste strategy going forward. So how council wants to structure costing in regards to a program where we look at encouraging the community, the change, that you could see things to be quite different in the future. That said, I'll just let Natalie explain some of the detail behind these figures, please.
Yeah, through the chair. So those costs outlined in table 2 are, as Mike said, they're outlined in our fees and charges, and they're directly reflective of the charges that we pay to the contractor for the supply and delivery of those changeover bins, plus a small administrative charge for internal costs associated with administering the contract and the bin changeover.
So by the time this is implemented, that's like, is that indexed? I'm not sure.
They're a fixed charge in our
For
fees
the
and
life of the
charges
contract.
for the financial year. As with any contract administration, there is rise and fall in contracts. So each year that charge will be reviewed, and our fees and charges will be updated accordingly.
Yeah, I guess it'll be putting a roadmap out there in front of the person in the community that helps them understand the full picture of what waste will cost us now, what's it costing us now and what it'll cost in the future, and diversion and that. So that will no doubt have to be a critical part of consultation for a person to make a conscious choice to spend additional money to change a bin that they might already be happy with.
And I guess that's part of the reason why we're going out for the consultation, is that this probably is a factor influencing the take-up rate.
Through you, Chair, I probably wouldn't get hung up on the cost yet. I think what we need to do is get an appreciation from the community as what's the appetite, and we need to come back to this chamber as to what the appetite of this chamber is to actually see that change in the way we actually deal with waste. That gives us a point in time. I just think we note that. Let's go through the consultation process. Let's gauge from the community their preparedness too, and then the willingness of this chamber to actually want to adopt that strategy. And I think your questions are fair, Councillor Cahill, but I wouldn't get too caught up on cost yet. Let's get the community to give us some feedback. What's that sweet point? What's the preparedness? What's the preparedness of this chamber to actually go, you know what, we're probably going to push through. And these are the reasons why we're going to push through. I think the discussion's important. I think having some of those outliers is important, but I wouldn't get too caught up until we go through this process and come back to the chamber.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I'm merely trying to put myself in the position of a person, a member of the public, who will be subject to consultation.
And Councillor
And
Cahill,
so-
knowing your environmental background, you would be willing to pay the $172 to have that bin.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillor Manteifel.
Thanks, Chair. Just going on from that, obviously, I can see where the gist of all this and the greatness of it all. With new development, somebody going into a new home, a new townhome or a new unit, are those people now given the option of getting 120, 240, 360 once their bin is ordered for their new residence?
Through the chair, yes. When a new house is rolled out, they have the option, and obviously it's part of the standard offering. So there's no charge at that point in time for new services.
Just to follow on, what happens if my 240 bin gets a great big crack in it? JJ Richards comes around and drops off a new one. Can I go, whoop, I want a 120?
I think that's an option, definitely, yes. Changeover due to damage is free of charge.
Thank you, Councillor Manteifel. Any further questions? Well, I'll put the motion that Council endorse the development and implementation of a community consultation plan to better understand factors influencing the uptake of the 360 litre recycling bin, the yellow lid, and the 140 litre general waste bin, red lid. And number 2, that the community feedback be used to inform a future report to Council on this matter on or before the ordinary meeting of Council scheduled for the 19th of May 2026. May I have a mover? Councillor Carl, seconder Councillor Gardner. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Natalie. Now move to item number 4, the Watala Electrical Renewal Project. Expressions of interest for early contractor involvement. Thank you, GM Mike.
Thank you, councillors. In respect to this report, it's a regulatory requirement when we're going to do an EOI to under section 228 through the local government regulations to bring this to council to get that approval. So this is a major project to set up, well, a renewal in many ways and an upgrade of the electrical assets out at Watala Water Reclamation Facility. So again, this is just the start of the process in getting some expertise and contractors on board. So going through this process will see us then go into a shortlisting process and then down a early contractor involvement process where we can tailor the design to what's required. Again, I've got Yvonne Blanco here, our manager for that area, and happy to take any detailed questions if need be. Thanks.
Thank you, GM Mike. Any questions? Councillor Gardner?
I agree with early contractor engagement. I was just questioning, being such like an $8 million electrical project, would you run two and then pay them, two contractors, and then the losing one gets paid 50 grand, 100 grand, whatever it is? It just gives you a competitive tender. It gives you, I think it's, it creates that competitiveness.
Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from. Would you like to come up, Yvonne? Competitive tension through the pricing process. I think that's the intent, but I'll just, after you do your shortlisting, depending on what interest, we'll probably take 2 or 3 through, won't we?
Yeah, the intent is to take 2 suppliers through, and they will be paid a fixed fee based on the negotiations. So the next step in the process, we'll go through a market sounding process to gauge what that fee should be, but it's probably in the order of $100,000.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Shine.
Thank you. Being totally ignorant about what is normal procedure in relation to this type of contract work, I take it that early involvement process is a normal activity of constructions of this nature, and
yeah, very much so, particularly in something that's probably so technical. It's a very complex project. The other aspect to it is that the Watella plant, the maximum time it can go offline at any one point of time, as I understand, is about 4 hours. Okay, so the proponent that puts a solution forward has to consider not just what they're doing from an electrical perspective, but the whole operations of that plant. So that's where all of Toowoomba flushes down to. So you don't want, how we upgrade and change over is a very complex exercise.
I take it what's being proposed is as the General Manager said, Acting General Manager said, an upgrade of, upgrade of the current facility, as opposed to any revolutionary idea that we're implementing. It's something that's necessary, and there's no alternative but to proceed along these lines.
Yeah, that's right. So I guess the intent of the project is to renew the assets, the electrical assets. So it's renewing the main switchboard A, and the MCC, the control centre for the disinfection section. So those 2 main components need to be renewed because they're at their end of service life. Okay,
and I understand from our pre-portfolio meeting that the cost of it, which is quite substantial, but it has been budgeted for this year and forthcoming years as well.
That's right. We have $8.75 million budgeted for over the next 3 years, and this year is for the onboarding of a contractor, and the subsequent years will be the execution phase.
Thank you, Councillor Shine. Any further questions? Okay, I do have a question before we move. Thank you, Yvonne. What contingencies have been built into the budget for unknown conditions or design changes discovered during ECI?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Chair. So I guess that's the strategy with this project, to have a multi-year funding approach. So the ECI process, we do anticipate that will unveil the full scope of the project and also give Council the opportunity to phase the renewal works over a subsequent number of years, and that may extend beyond the 2-year current funding that we have Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any further questions? No. Councillor Carl to move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gardner. Any need for debate? No. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much. And I will close the meeting for water and waste. Mr Mayor, I propose that we push through for infrastructure and then have a 10-minute break after infrastructure.
Good afternoon, councillors, staff, and those viewing online. Welcome to the infrastructure meeting for Toowoomba Regional Council. This is open and live streamed. I would like to thank all those in the room today and the acting GM. Welcome.
Thank you.
Councillors, CEO and other staff members. Have you all clicked on join the meeting? Very good, very good. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet on today, the Western Waka Waka, Jarrawa and Guyval people. I'd like for us to ponder for a little while about their song lines and how they connect communities, how they connect people, how they told a story. And that's the very thing we're doing here today, is connecting. We're being responsible and ensuring that our community is connected by sound decision making and responsible governance, as many cultures around the world, both First Nations and all sorts of leadership functions throughout the globe. So it's something that I often think of this as, or I want to make sure that I'm relevant as a person who identifies as a First Nation and not forget why I'm here. And I think that's really, really important for us. it's something that should be just everyday part of us. And I'm sure councillors and staff that is what motivates us as a collective group to make those decisions. And I'd like to recognise First Nations elders past, present and emerging because they have built platforms on a platform for us to build on, as our ancestors, your ancestors, have done. And so it's our place to take that position and build positively and productively on that. So with that, I would like to go to item 2. Attendance, including apologies, leave of absence and declarations of conflicts of interest. There's nil apologies advised today. Noting a leave of absence for Councillor Carol Taylor and Councillor Rebecca Von Hoff, and no resolutions required. I do have a declaration myself to put before Council, and it's in relation to item number 4, the Highfields Kratzky O'Brien Roads Upgrade Project proposed land acquisition. So I'd like to inform the meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in this matter as defined in section 150E of the Local Government Act 2009. The nature of my interest is as follows. This declarable conflict of interest arises because I live within reasonable proximity to Highfields, Kratzky and O'Brien Roads. I wish to participate in the decision in relation to this matter. I acknowledge that eligible councillors must now determine, pursuant to this section 150ES of the Local Government Act 2009, whether I, 1, may participate in the decision about the matter, including by voting on the matter, must leave the meeting, including any area set aside for the public, and stay away from the meeting while the eligible councillors discuss and vote on the matter. 3, may participate in the decision about the matter, subject to conditions. Or 4, I've sought advice through CEO Sal and Council's Counsel Bailey. 4, may participate in a decision about this matter, including by voting on this matter, and B, any future acquisitions of proposed land associated within the Highfields Master Plan site, including voting, subject to circumstances not changing. That's my circumstances not changing. So happy for you guys to fire a question at me if you like.
Thanks, Councillor Bill. Just that last little bit there, is that to enable you to not have to declare again, or is that what the advice has been given?
Yes, and as subject to
if there's changes.
Yes, if there's changes, yes.
So I think we could almost run the same line as we did for the previous one for Highfields Town Centre, in that this was probably, is this the first time you've declared for this particular project though? That's come to council?
No.
Okay, so nothing's changed since previous. So if that's the case, and we did determine that you could stay in the room, participate and vote on the matter, and if nothing's changed, then there's no reason for us to change that decision. So therefore happy to move that you stay in the room and vote on the matter.
So Councillor McDonald, Councillor Shine second. Those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. So I now need to close the meeting so we can go into conflict. Councillor Jeff, close the meeting. Councillor Tim, second. Those in favour? I'd better read out the reason for that the meeting be closed to the public in accordance with section 245-54J in brackets 3 of the Local Government Act, Local Government Regulation 2012 to consider the following agenda item. A confidential Highfields Kratzky O'Brien Roads Upgrade Project proposed land acquisition. The reason, this report discusses matters relating to business for which a public discussion would be likely to prejudice the interests of the local government or someone else, and therefore it is recommended that the meeting be closed to the public in accordance with section 254J3G, negotiations relating to a commercial matter involving the local government for which a public discussion would be likely to prejudice the interests of the local government regulation 2012. Thanks, councillors. Would you mind getting the door? Thanks. Councillors, back in open session, item 4, Highfields Kratzky O'Brien Road upgrade project proposed land acquisition. The motion is, do you want me to read out the entire motion? Maybe just a précis. That council endorses the confidential report entitled Highfields Kratzky O'Brien Roads Upgrade Project. After due consideration of objections to the taking of the land described in objections report comprising of attachment 5 of the confidential report, and that note that the taking of the land referred to in this report also includes the taking of the resource interest comprising exploration permit geothermal number 2026. So those in favour of the motion? Oh, sorry, mover, Councillor Gary, seconder, Councillor Trevor. Are those in favour? That's unanimous. I voted yes. Councillors, that concludes the Infrastructure Committee. Thank you for your attendance, and I hand over to the Environment Community Committee. Or should we 5-minute break?
Okay, right. Now I can go, right, thanks. Sorry, the horse bolted before the barn door was open. Good afternoon and welcome to the Environment and Community Committee meeting for the 11th of November 2025. I would ask all councillors to ensure that they have connected to the meeting and joined the meeting. This meeting is open to the public and will also be live streamed. I'd like to thank all of those in the room today and acknowledge everyone watching via Council's social media channels. I'd like to open the meeting and advise that there's no apologies, noting leave of absence for Councillors Carol Taylor and Rebecca Von Hoff. No resolution is required, and just noting they are away on council business. I have not received any declarations of prescribed conflict of interest, nor have I received any declarations of declarable conflict of interest, but as per usual, if anything arises, please advise me. We will now move to item number 3, the Skelly Recreation Reserve Dog Off-Leash Area, and I will hand the meeting now over to General Manager Nick Hauser. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, councillors. Councillors, this report addresses a gap in the provision of dog off-leash areas in the north of our region, specifically in Crow's Nest, and the need was identified through previous strategic planning endorsed by Council in 2021. In order to construct the dog off-leash area, your endorsement is required to a change to the local law register to allow for the inclusion of that dog off-leash area in Skelly Recreation Park. Councillors, we've been through quite a lot of community consultation on this one. First of all, in round 1 in 2024, our consultation sought views from the community about their preferred site for a dog off-leash area, and they were presented with 2 options, being Skelly Recreation Reserve and Dale Street Park. And at that point in time, 60% of the community indicated preference for Skelly Recreation Reserve. Our second round of consultation in August of this year addressed the need to consult around changes to local law changes, and specifically, again, that designation of the dog off-leash area. And through that consultation, councillors, 16 of 19 respondents were in support of creating a dog off-leash area in Skelly Recreation Reserve. Funding's available in this year's Capital Works program for the works required to support that fenced dog off-leash area. And councillors, with that, I commend the report to you and I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you, GM Hauser. I have a question from Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Nick. It's really great to see our processes in action, I must say. I signed off on the consultation twice. As the Parks portfolio, it's come back. You guys have put it together and here we are, and it's a great outcome. There are dog off-leash parks and then there are dog off-leash parks. Your map has a proposed fence. Is that going in straight away? The reason I ask is dog off-leash parks without fences near high traffic roads aren't a real good outcome for the community. So does the 175k include a fence, and is it one of the first things we'll build?
Through you, Chair, thanks for the question. Councillor McMahon, yes, the construction of a fence is included and planned for immediate commencement, well, is near enough immediate commencement following your endorsement of this project. So that construction will occur in the new year before the end of the financial year, at which point in time then we would amend the register and people can exercise their dogs off leash in that fenced area.
Thanks, Nick. A great win for Crow's Nest, Chair, at the appropriate time. Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor McMahon. Any other questions? Councillor Shine.
Is there a provision currently or possibility in the future of having a large dog and a small dog areas, like we have at Hogston, I think, for example?
Councillor, that's another very good question. Currently, there are no provisions in legislation to allow us to differentiate between breeds of dogs or other factors, size, for example. So we find that typically community manages that themselves, you know, and this is a large area. I think it's separated in 2 when you have a look at the plan. So typically we'll find those people segregating themselves naturally.
Thank you, Councillor Shine. Any further questions? No, do I have I've got a mover for the motion. May I have a seconder? Councillor Gardner. So I have a mover in Councillor McMahon, a seconder in Councillor Gardner. Item number 3, Skelly Recreation Reserve Dog Off-Leash Area. Is there any need for debate? No. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much. I will now need to close the meeting for item 4, and the motion that the meeting be closed to the public in accordance with section 254J3 of Local Government Regulation 2012 to consider the following item on the agenda, item number 5, confidential acquisition of land for park purposes, Wilsonton. The reason for closed meeting is this report discusses matters of a commercial nature that are likely to prejudice the interests of council or someone else or enable a person to gain a financial advantage, and therefore it is recommended that the meeting be closed to the public in accordance with section 254J3G, negotiations relating to a commercial matter involving the local government for which a public discussion would likely to prejudice the interests of the local government of Local Government Regulation 2012. May I have a mover, please? Councillor O'Shea, a seconder. Councillor Farquhar. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much. I now bring Thank you. We are now back online. And item number 5, I will put that the confidential motion acquisition of the land for park purposes in Wilsonton. May I have a mover? Councillor O'Shea, seconder Councillor McMahon. All those in... Oh, any need for debate? No. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. And with that, I will close the meeting. And if you could please leave the meeting on your devices. Thank you.
Good afternoon, councillors, and welcome to the Corporate Services Committee meeting of the Toowoomba Regional Council for the month of November. The meeting is open to the public, will also be live streamed. So I'd like to thank those who are in the room with us today and acknowledge everyone watching via Council's social media channels. Can I acknowledge the CEO, Sal Petrosudo, the General Manager of Corporate Services, Anne-Marie Johnson, Mayor Jeff McDonald, fellow councillors and everyone else staff-wise that's in the room with us here today. I'd also like to open by acknowledging the Aboriginal parties whose songlines traverse the lands that we meet on today, the Western Waka Waka, Guyabal and Jarrawa peoples, and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging, for they hold the knowledge, rich traditions and bold ambitions of Australia's first people. And also, I think it's worthy of recognising, obviously, today being Remembrance Day as well, and the many different events that occurred right across our region, whether they be public events or in schools, to, of course, a moment for us to pause and honour the men and women who served, to remember those who never came home, and to reflect on the freedoms and the life their sacrifice has protected. So it's a day that reminds us certainly of courage, community and the importance of keeping these stories alive. So thank you to all those in the community that were part of events that occurred today. Councillors, we go to item 2, which is the attendance, including apologies, leave of absence and declarations of conflict of interest. Apologies-wise, we have nil advised, but we do note a leave of absence with Councillors Carol Taylor and Deputy Mayor Rebecca Von Hoff being absent today on council business. Declarations-wise, we do have 2. The first of those, I assume in running order, is mine. So it is in item 3, quote or tender consideration plan advertising services. I inform this meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in this matter as defined in section 150EN of the Local Government Act 2009. The nature of my interest is as follows. The declarable conflict of interest arises because I am a subcontractor to Power FM, who on the list Jeffrey Paul Roberts, and have recently become a member of the 4WHO Wild Horse FM Advisory Committee, who are listed on the table of involved parties as suppliers to council. I propose to leave and stay away from the place where the meeting is being held while the matter is discussed and voted on. So also just as a heads up to consider when we reach that particular time, obviously I'll vacate, and then, or do I call for? I'll call for a chair before vacating once we get to that. Once we get to that particular item. But as we continue on declarations, Councillor Melissa Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. A declarable conflict of interest. I inform the meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in this matter. Item number 3, quote or tender consideration plan advertising services. As defined in section 150EN of the Local Government Act 2009, the nature of my interest is as follows. This declarable conflict of interest arises because a person who is a close friend of mine works for Go Transit, a supplier to TRC. She interacts with officers re TRC advertising with Go Transit. I propose that I will leave the meeting, including any area set aside for the public, and stay away from the meeting while the eligible councillors discuss and vote on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Melissa. I have not been notified of any other declarations, but should any arise, we can bring them up as we proceed. So, councillors, that does take us to that particular item, item 3, quote or tender consideration plan advertising services. So, as mentioned with the declarations, I will ask for a nomination from the floor for a chair for this particular item. Councillor Kerry?
Mayor?
Nominate the Mayor. You're happy to accept that nomination, Mayor? A seconder, Councillor Edwina. All those in favour? So that's carried. So I'll vacate and we'll...
Thanks very much, councillors. It is item number 3, quote and tender consideration plan. Are there any questions, councillors, in regard to this matter? It's as read by the officers. Councillor Edwina.
Thank you, Chair. Just one for you, GM Emery, and I'm sorry this is without notice, but looking to move towards this new way of having preferred, I guess, suppliers in the tender process, how does it differ to what we've been doing in the past?
This is actually, sorry, good afternoon, councillors. It's actually no different to what we've done in the past. We've done this for a variety of services over the last few years. Fleet, spare parts for motor vehicles is another example. And we've got another report coming up with ICT application services. So what we're trying to do, so this is fully compliant, subject to the council resolution, and it's just an efficient process for procuring within the Local Government Act. And it just means that if we're looking for to procure advertising services, that we don't go out to a quote or tender consideration plan, because we know that we need to target where we're spending our advertising dollars to get, I suppose, the best bang for our buck in different areas. So it enables us to be agile, versatile within this service.
Okay, so historically we've always gone out for tender for each campaign, is that correct?
We've been doing this probably, and I'm happy to take on notice and give you a list of the other services within council that we do have quota tender consideration plans for.
It's more our advertising strategy than the tender process. So have we always, when we run a campaign, the team runs a campaign, do they then have to go out for tender for each campaign that we run?
That's right. We would have to, if we didn't have this process in place, every time we wanted to procure advertising services, we would have to go to the market for quotes or for tender, depending on the value.
Okay. And just one more question, if I may. I've worked with media buying and planning companies in the past. Would we consider not having I know a lot of governments, state, federal, many organisations use a media buying company who has the expertise to then go and buy specific media for each campaign. Have we considered that as a council?
Very happy to take that one on notice, and I'll
Thank you.
have a chat with the team and get back to you.
Because they can often get much better rates and deals, and then they also have experts planning where each ad should be placed based on the target market.
Good. Councillor Trevor.
Thanks, Chair. To you, Anne-Marie. Have we done reviews of all these marketing companies, people?
Yes.
And have we got overlaps there that we can cut costs on? Because there seems to be a lot there. To me, there's overlap on a lot of them. Have we done any reviews on what's effective and what's not effective?
No, so the operational area has reviewed the list, and actually, councillors, I want to add another one to it. So I'm sorry that you think the list is a bit long, but I'm actually going to propose that we add another one to that list. So the operational area have gone through their current procurement processes and looked at the organisations that they are utilising at this time, and that's who's been included in the list that you've got.
So getting to this list, have we dropped any, or are we now going to add another one?
I'll have to take whether we've dropped any on notice since the last time we did the list, but the one that I'm proposing that we add is the Crows Post. So that's an entity that they hadn't got the paperwork completed when the list was put together, and our finance team are working with them to finalise the paperwork for onboarding. So it is I would suggest that these are evolving. If we change this list in any way, so if we we can't add anyone onto the list without bringing it back to a council decision.
So if you look through the list, it's really about the bespoke advertising in regional places. That's what it's for, and there's no others. So that's where it is. To pick up on Councillor Edwina's, it's a very valid point. These are at a certain threshold. If there is a significant campaign that would have a bigger spend, then you would go to market. Yes. And that's where your process is a process that has happened in the past. So this is really to expedite. If we've got something, a good example would be the community hubs that are open this week. Now, if we were to go out to quote or tender for something that's in there, and you've got, on our selection, you've got the local paper, Clifton Courier, then you go to the Clifton Courier without having to go to tender. That's really what this is, just to expedite things. But by legislation, you can do this and make it easier for the staff to do it.
Thank you, Chair, and I just want to comment on that I think this is great, because the idea of going out to tender for every little campaign for me seems ridiculous, and just so much red tape. So I'm glad to see some efficiencies here. Thank you.
You're happy to move the motion, Councillor Edwina?
I'm very happy to move the motion.
Seconded by Councillor Bill. Any questions? No need to go into debate. Those in favour? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. I'll ask Councillor James then to come back in. Well, division is unanimous.
We want to add the additional. We had the additional proposal. We could add it.
Add the additional proposal. Sorry, Councillor. Sorry.
Apologies.
Sorry, councillors. So the addition was to include the Crows Post.
Yeah, that's fine.
In the involved
happy
parties.
to include that in the motion?
Yes,
Edwina?
please.
So attachment 3. So council adopt the quote for tender to those advertised attachment 3.
Okay. Attachment 3 will include the Crows Post. Okay. All in favour? We're going. No change. Unanimous decision. Carried.
Thank you, Mayor McDonald. So, councillors, we move to item 4, which is the council pre-approved suppliers exception from seeking written quotes or tenders. So I'll hand across to GM Anne-Marie.
So, councillor, this one is a little bit different. So this is to obtain a resolution which allows councils under specific circumstances to not seek written quotes. So this is a report that we take back to you every year for your consideration, and the list is provided. So I suppose for me what's encouraging, if we look at that history of pre-approved suppliers for the last 5 years, you can see that it has reduced, and there's just 55 suppliers on the list today. So what we're doing from a compliance point of view is that we are ensuring that only suppliers who can uniquely provide the service are included on the list. So with the recommendation that Council adopt the pre-approved supplier list as being compliant with the application of Section 235 of the Local Government Regulation 2012.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Manteifel?
Through your chair to Anne-Marie, what percentage would be local-ish or in TRC land area? What percentage of suppliers would be in TRC area or TRC land?
Yeah, I'd have to take that one on notice. But our procurement policy quite clearly favours local spend and locals. And we can see that over the last 10 years where we've moved from 24% to a target of 60%. And we achieved our target for October, as we will be reporting next week. So I think there are some suppliers like our Tier 1 ERPs that are obviously not going to be local, taxation services, suppliers such as that. But where there is any opportunity at all, centralising the procurement function and ensuring that our policies and procedures favour local spend where possible, the results speak for themselves with what we've achieved.
Thank you, Anne-Marie.
I might just ask the CEO to add some commentary.
Councillors, just some comments, because Anne-Marie and I did discuss this, and one of my concerns was how regularly are we testing to ensure that we're still getting value for money? And what we have agreed is that we will do a regular test to ensure that those that are on the supplier list are giving us best value for money, to ensure that that is good for us and the broader community, and it's just good governance practice, so we will be putting some of those provisions in play as well.
Thanks, CEO. Thanks, Trevor. Councillor Farquhar?
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to move the motion. There are no further questions.
I'll ask one last time if there are any further questions. If there are no further questions, I have a mover in Councillor Farquhar, a seconder in Councillor Gardner. Any reason to go into debate? So, councillors, the recommendation is that Council adopt the pre-approved suppliers list attachment 2 as being compliant with the application of Section 235A or B of Local Government Regulation 2012 for contract purposes. So, a mover and a seconder. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? It's carried unanimously. So, councillors, that takes us to item 5, which is quote or tender consideration plan ICT application. So, again, I'll hand across to General Manager Anne-Marie.
Thank you, Councillor. So this is the same as the first report we looked at this afternoon, Councillors, but this one is for application services. So this is software services with the quote or tender consideration plan for the ICT branch. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Councillors, any questions in regards to this item? Councillor Carl?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Sal. The same applies for this list, mate. Just some, I guess, how do I say it? I just say it, a point of accountability for assessment and an operational policy on time period that it's reviewed and assessed.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Cahill, and through you, Chair. These committee reports were pulled from October, so I could get comfort that the organisation was putting the appropriate measures in place to ensure we don't set and forget. So those discussions have been had with Anne-Marie, and we're putting those procedures and practices in play to ensure that we adhere to those provisions.
Thanks, Councillor Carl. With councillors, if there are no further questions, there is a recommendation there, and it is that Council prepare a quote or tender consideration plan for the ongoing procurement of existing ICT applications, which are software, subscription, licensing, hosting and managed services, without first seeking quotes or tenders under Section 230 of the Local Government Regulation 2012. And item 2 of the recommendation is that Council adopt the quote or tender consideration plan ICT application, software, subscription, licensing, hosting and managed services, which is attachment 2. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Melissa Taylor, seconded by Councillor Gary Gardner. And you need to go into debate. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Councillors, that takes us to item number 6, which is the 2025-2026 operational plan progress report year-to-date quarter 1. Dave. So, Dave Quinlan is coming forward.
just give an overview, Dave, please?
Thank you, Mr Chair. Good afternoon, councillors. I understand this is close to the end, so I'll be concise. Before you is the operational plan progress report year to date, which we call Q1 or quarter one. I'll take the report, the attachment as read. Councillors will note that there's no recommended changes to the operational plan for this period. We have highlighted that there's 33% of the KPIs are future dated. It's not that there is a concern, I think, at that point with the performance, but rather that information is not available at this point. In terms of such things as the Carnival of Flowers, we don't get those visitor numbers till November, and I think the overnight stays and local spend come in the first quarter of next calendar year. Similarly, the one change we have made with this year is we don't report on the operating surplus until the end of the year. Because of the lumpiness of the way council receives its revenue through those major rating points in the year, it has been confusing for some people who don't quite understand it, that you can vastly have a positive or negative there, and it really doesn't have much use really till the end of the financial year. So this time we've chosen to measure that at the end of the fiscal year, which I think is quite sensible because it wasn't providing much value month by month. There's 7% of the specific actions and projects are delayed. That's a total of 3 out of the 42. The general managers are here to talk to those issues. But I think that they all relate to capital projects, basically. With that, I'd point out that the recommendation is that the council note the organisational performance progress year to date for quarter one.
Thanks, Dave. So, councillors, the report is there, and obviously we have GMs and acting GMs in the room with us here. So, any questions, obviously, we will have the relevant staff in the room to answer. So, I've got Councillor Melissa, first of all.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to General Manager Anne-Marie. I did send through 4 questions in advance, so I'll ask the first one and we'll just go one by one. Is that okay? So first one, of the 7% of specific actions and projects not on target, what are the primary causes of delay? Are they resource-based, funding-related, or due to external dependencies?
And thank you, Councillor. And I did forward your questions to each of the general managers, and I think Dave probably covered off on that one in his response. So I think on the first quarter of the year is really our planning, when we're planning activities for the year. We did have a lengthy discussion at ELT yesterday following the 1/3 of the way through, so this is the end of September result. So looking at the end of October result, which is a bit more relevant, that we are most definitely reviewing what's on track. At this stage, we are, we'll bring a reforecast in the new financial year, but at this stage, we believe it's just timing differences and that we're on track to deliver. If Dave would like to add to that one.
No, that's fine. That's all good. Thank you. My second question was about the 33% of the KPIs that are future dated. So you've already answered that one. Thank you, Dave. My next one was about the risk management framework informing responses to underperforming areas. And I think you've covered off on that because of the lumpiness of the said areas. So thank you for that. And I think you've covered off on question 4 too, was has there been any adjustment or reallocation of resources as a result of quarter one findings? And I think you've covered off on that too. So I appreciate the efficiency in those. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Melissa. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor McMahon.
Chair, thank you. I'll go through you to Dave. Page 17 of the report, page 18 on board books, it has the capital works outcomes by department, I suppose you'd say. But it's a Q1, so you've got all these 100% ones there. If they were 25% for Q1, with a 10% tolerance, that'd all be green. And so because this is a Q1, why couldn't we put 25% of capital works rather than expecting 100% of a capital works to be done in 1 quarter of the year?
Through you, Chair. The annual target is 100%, so that's the annual target. It's important to note with these projects too that and this is the physical completion of those projects rather than looking at the financial expenditure. Physical completion of those projects, of course, is not linear across the year. We don't expect to be at a certain point. That will be phased, if you like, and so that's why it's out. The 10% is where it's phased and expected to be. If we are within that 10%, we're not green, but we go to monitor. So if a target was 100% and we reach 92% with a 10% tolerance, that would be monitor, not green.
Right.
So you only get a green.
100% of your Q1?
That, as you can see there, that it's an annual target.
Yeah, sure.
The actuals are not sitting. You can see the actuals listed there at 23, 16, etc.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. I still maintain that a Q1 report could have a 25% target rather than an annual target, and therefore that'll be green. But thank you for the conversation.
Councillor, through you, Chair. Councillor Tim, it's a valid question, but probably not realistic in terms of the way some of the capital projects are both scoped and then procured. In all essence, this is probably a premature KPI in the first 3 months of the year, considering that we lock away budgets for June, we're still doing project scoping work. What I can probably advise councillors, there was a very robust discussion yesterday at the executive leadership team around how we do capital projects and the way we probably look at our expenditure and programming work to probably get some of this spend more aligned to what expectations would be, and that work will probably continue over time. You would expect to see that over the October, November, that you'll probably see an increase in expenditure. We'll have a slower period over the Christmas break and then we'll ramp up in the new year. So I'm monitoring this one quite carefully. The worst thing we want to do is lock away capital money into projects that we could be freeing up for others. So there is very robust discussion occurring around this.
Thank you for the update, Chair. I have another question. Thank you. It's through you to Nick, actually, on page 16, one above, the Jubilee Park mountain bike plan as a red diamond on this one. I just wanted to pick your brain. I know there's delays, Nick, but there's also considerable funding that we're using up for this, and I suppose I don't want us to lose that, and I wanted to see us deliver something really great for the community despite being delayed. So could I have an update on that, please, and if the funding remains?
Thanks, Councillor. Through you, Chair. Councillor McMahon, you've summarised that very well. The funding that we have available in the project program is for delivery over a couple of financial years. So we're not going to have that project delivered by June this year. It extends across a couple of years. The delays we are experiencing are associated with external factors around EPBC referrals and responses, and we continue to work through that. We are trying to bring forward other parts of the project, so design of trailheads and the activity nodes at the head of the trail. So those things are bringing forward to ensure that we are delivering works on ground as soon as we possibly can. The project was funded through SEQ Livability Fund, I think, and we have a couple of projects that are being delivered with that funding. The original programming had more work happening on the mountain bike trails and less work happening in the Southern Cross Ovals amenity, and we are switching that around and doing more work on Southern Cross Ovals amenity and less work on, well, not less work, but expending less funds on the mountain bike for the reasons I've just expressed. The time frame for this one and its delivery is starting to come under pressure, even though we have a couple of years, but it is coming under pressure, and the team's doing the best that it can to work through what might be required to satisfy those EPBC referrals, including offsets and other things.
Thank you, Nick. And it's they've changed significantly in the last few years, the EPBC referrals. I trust you and your team are doing everything and look forward to an update at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McMahon. Councillor Farquhar.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Timms just asked my questions regarding EPBC timing and the impact on funding, so thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Farquhar. Councillor Shine.
I don't know whether the officers can look at this, but on page 15, ACT 03188 refers to the water vision work, and it says that whilst the bulk of the project work is yet to commence, the team is on track to meet the end of financial year target completion. Just wondering how that works. If it's yet to be commenced, why is it on track? If you know the answer to that, if you don't, then we'll leave it go.
Speaking for the area, and I don't have intimate knowledge, obviously, but what they're saying, and that's why it's got a monitor on there, they will have a phased project for the year and a certain expectation. They're saying that, we're looking at this, but we're confident that we'll be on track by the end of the year. That's why it's been brought up as a monitor, if you like. So they will have phased that project with an expectation of completion across the year. They're highlighting that they're not where they want to be at this point, but it's not totally off. It's a monitor.
Councillor Kerry, I can probably add to that. In discussions that I've had with Jake, this one is regularly being worked through with me. We are looking at a council information session, if not this year, early next year, to ensure that we meet those timelines. Once again, it's a timing issue, and that's why I probably do have some issues with the way we have some of our key performance indicators and what we do say and the way we report. But this one is still on track for completion as required.
No, thank you, because I think Jake did indicate to our committee briefing that there was to be an information session early next year. I just didn't seem to be consistent with that. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Shine. Councillors, any further questions in regards to this particular item? Mayor McDonald.
No further questions. Happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Mayor McDonald. Seconded by Councillor Melissa. So the motion is that Council note the organisational performance as outlined in the 2025-26 Operational Plan Progress Report Year to Date, Quarter 1, Attachment 1. So I've got a mover and a seconder. Does anyone wish to go into debate? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you to the team. So that concludes the Corporate Services Committee. Thanks, Anne-Marie. Thanks, Dave. Also, thanks to Tanya as well. Tanya Alves is our new CCE principal or manager. Right.
Very good. Good afternoon and welcome to the Economic Development Committee meeting for November. Welcome to all of those in the gallery. Thank you for your attendance. It's very valued. And all of those watching online. We do appreciate everyone's attendance. Welcome to all councillors and the CEO, Sal Petrosito, OIM. Welcome to you, GM Ed, and other officers that are in the room as well. As we say, this meeting is open to the public and also live streamed. I will acknowledge the fact that this is Remembrance Day and thank councillors for their attendance at the many and varied remembrance services that right across our region. I do appreciate you attending those services. It means a lot for our community, as it does for you as individuals and for our council as well. I can also acknowledge the traditional custodians on the land in which we meet and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. We move to item 2, which is the attendance, including apologies, leave of absence and declaration of conflicts of interest. As in regard to the apologies, there's a noting of the leave of absence for councillors Carol Taylor and the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Rebecca Von Hoff. There's no resolution that is required in regard to that. Councillors, in regard to declarations of both prescribed and declarable conflicts of interest, I don't have any noted. If something crops up through this item, please feel free to raise that and alert the chair, whether it's for yourself or someone else. Ed, we'll move to item number 3, an important item. It's the adoption of the Renewable Energy Community Benefit Agreement, and something, and I acknowledge, Ed, you and Anthony Holsworth and the team for getting us to this point. A new legislation for the state government that we've welcomed, and an opportunity for us as a local government to have more of a say in the process of a benefit to our community. And I acknowledge the fine work that you've done, benchmarking across other councils that have gone down this path as well, and also keeping this to us, Toowoomba region. So although we've used other examples, I congratulate you and the team on making this a Toowoomba Regional Council Renewable Energy Community Benefit Agreement policy. And I'll hand over to you, Ed, say a few words, then we'll go to the councillors for questions. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillors, I commend to you the draft Community Benefit Agreement policy for adoption here today. The Community Benefit Policy seeks to formalise a fair, transparent and enforceable process. It requires executed Community Benefit Agreement deeds to accompany development approvals lodged to the state government via the State Assessment and Referral Agency as a result of the changes in the legislation, specifically the Planning Act. The policy before you seeks to establish a two-stream funding model. The stream 1 of that funding model contains, I guess, what we would term mandatory mitigation elements for projects that are captured within the legislative changes, being renewable energy projects, predominantly wind and solar, as it affects our communities, as well as stream 2, which introduces legacy benefits to those impacted communities that are hosting or affected by renewable energy projects. The process and the proposed policy before you introduces a transparent way to manage and distribute funds that are raised through community benefit agreements and the associated work that goes with that, and mandates transparency through publication of the deeds, ledgers, dashboards and annual reporting associated with any funding collected. In terms of the funding rates and I guess the policy approach, and the Mayor has touched on this, so I won't cover that ground. What we've looked to do is engage across LGAQ and other councils that are impacted by this legislative change, understand what those folks are looking to do, and then apply that in a distinctly Toowoomba way to ensure that the areas that are most impacted by renewable energy projects and project proponents are able to harness the legacy benefits in particular and manage the impacts to these sorts of projects. The communities that spring to mind and the economic development team have done a significant amount of work both in Millmerran and Cecil Plains, and that's where we're seeing the bulk of renewable energy activity within this region, and that's certainly the focus of the efforts of officers at the moment to capture the opportunity that can arise within those areas and then ensure that legacy benefits are provided in line with the proposal before you today. So I commend the report and happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Ed. Questions? Councillor Kerry, then Councillor Bill.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. Thank you for the report. What I'm concerned about, I suppose, is the obligations that, say, the developer has entered into with the council and then subsequently approved by the state. If something untoward happens to the developer in the future, goes broke, disappears, is there anything, any provision that we can place on the title to the land, an encumbrance, notice such that we can enforce our rights on the land itself, or a prospective purchaser will be bound by that, like an easement, for example?
Thank you. And through the chair, it's a great question, and it's something that we've really turned our minds to. What we found through our research is that the project proponents are often not the actual freehold landowner underneath. And so attachment of the obligations to the landowner can actually introduce some other difficulties should the proponent cease to exist or cease trading or whatever that may be. So what we've sought to do is through this process, and it's a legally binding agreement, a community benefit agreement between council as the representative agency of the community and the project proponent. There are clauses within, I guess, those agreements that require compliance and compel compliance. And ultimately, if compliance with the requirements of the community benefit agreement are not found, it is a development and enforcement action that ultimately the state as well as council would seek to engage upon through the processes that are existing within the Planning Act to ensure compliance. So, and I guess that's the usual pathway for non-compliance with development approvals, should an approval be given. But likewise, we've staged the timing of payments here so that we would become alerted quite quickly should issues arise, and there are steps that we can take to proactively ensure compliance through that process. So we're talking about quarterly payments for Schedule 2. Now, if payments fall into arrears, then that's a trigger for officers to engage, both with the state and with project proponents, to ensure that everything is as it should be.
Just following on that, you mentioned right at the start the freehold ownership might be likely to be. I don't know. Is there a way we can involve in the contract the freehold owner and bind him or her in this way in which I tried to articulate?
Correct. It's certainly something that we are looking to do through the contractual elements to ensure that both the proponent and the landowner are party to the agreement. Where we can do that, that may not always be the case, so we haven't baked that in as a policy requirement, if you will, at this point, because there are varying structures for how these are rolled out. So we don't want to tie ourselves and then end up having to come back to council because of an outlier to that. So what we're looking to do that is negotiate that through and ultimately compel that through the agreement process, which is still required before a development application can be lodged. This needs to be resolved.
You don't anticipate that there has to be any state government legislation authorising that?
No, the Planning Act covers it quite sufficiently. Yeah.
Just finally, one reads recent times the state government pulling some renewable energy projects. That might in the future happen again after we as a council have, negotiated a favourable agreement with the proponent. That's life. We can't do much about that. Is that the case?
The nature of the agreements is such that we're looking to structure those over the life of the project. And because they're tied to the approval, they would be, I guess, grandfathered in, for lack of a better term. So if an agreement's struck under the legislative regime of the day, the intent of the agreement is that would continue in spite of changes to legislative functions. Now, obviously, it's an agreement between the parties, and council may look to review that should the landscape change, but certainly at this point in time, the proposed structure of the CBAs is such that it's for the life of the project.
Councillor Bill and Councillor Tim.
Thanks, Chair. Ed, under the umbrella of the legislation, is there opportunity for minor amendments to how we structure that community benefit, or is that set in concrete what we send off to the state? And the reason for my question is we see evolution take place and maturity across different sectors, this being one of them. Is there any opportunity?
It's a great question, absolutely. And for that very reason, we've looked to pull forward the revision date of this particular policy to 12 months. We know that the nature of dialogue in this space at the moment is very, very live. And I would anticipate that in 12 months, with the benefit of hindsight, I suspect there will be things that we want to do differently. So we would look to review the policy at that point or sooner if needed. Certainly, what we need to do is have a policy to allow us to enter into these negotiations with proponents. This is, in the officer's view, the best practice approach to deal with this. I suspect, as I mentioned, that will evolve and we'll look at that at the time. In terms of the legislative regime that applies to this, it's one that simply says you must have a community benefit agreement for particular types of projects, and this is how we're looking to do that. So absolutely, we can shuffle as needed.
Thanks. Just one further, if I may, Chair. Further to Councillor Carey's question around you mentioned the benefit kicks in from, is it from the date of approval or is it the commencement of the project proper?
What we're looking to do through that is, as those projects become clearer in terms of what those impacts are, both from an individual and a cumulative perspective within particular townships, we're looking to understand when are those impacts realised for this project, as well as what's been mitigated by other projects through CBAs. So we would look to adapt, mitigation actions specific to the circumstances at play. So some of those would be before the project turns a sod, and we'd look to find an appropriate milestone that is legally enforceable through that. Others may be deferred a little bit in terms of there's a mature workforce accommodation strategy within an area, there's trade availability and housing availability. So the impacts are probably lower in that scenario because those issues have been already dealt with by other proponents. So we'd look to deal with things in a little bit differently. So we haven't necessarily put that in the policy because it will evolve dependent on the project, dependent on the location and dependent on who went before them.
Thank you.
Councillor Tim.
Chair, thank you. Good afternoon, Ed. This is actually a fairly large deal, perhaps a bigger deal than we're giving credit for, and I welcome it. I think it's a tremendous document to have. I know we've got legislative requirements to have it, but it puts us in a very good place to welcome these new projects. My question is around the principles, and there's one called additionality. I think it's great, and it basically says more than what you're required to do anyway. And when we have a look at attachment 1, which isn't confidential, we have the two types of funding, the mandatory mitigation, and then we have this idea, which is a tremendous idea, called legacy funding. I'm interested in, now I've lost it, there it is, page 6 of 12, the funding and delivery. It actually goes into a table telling proponents dollar per megawatt of energy generation, the amount of money that they must give into the community. And I think that's tremendous because it puts it at this is exactly what we want, and so they know how much they need to propose. I was just wondering around those numbers, where have they come from? Do we benchmark them with other councils? Because we don't want to be losing these projects because they don't require legacy infrastructure at the next LGA.
It's a great question, Councillor, and that was the genesis of a lot of the work in terms of engaging both with our neighbours, Western Downs, Southern Downs and Gundawindi, who are equally working through this policy framework at the moment, as well as Isaac and some of the other Gladstone, and they have a different resource profile within those areas, so they're looking to do something perhaps a little bit differently. But we took a very strong view at an officer level and through that engagement across other councils that the sun doesn't stop shining at a local government boundary and the wind doesn't stop blowing. So we need to have an element of consistency across that so that we're not shopped against each other in terms of attracting these and the benefits that these can bring for the regions. So the figures that you see there on page 6 of 12 are consistent with Western Downs. I understand they're consistent with the approach that others are taking within our localised region, and they've been benchmarked at a national level to arrive at that, so that there's an element of consistency that local governments are taking, despite it not being our jurisdictional responsibility to do so. So the teams have gone over and above in that regard.
Just another one, if I might, Ed. This is, it's renewables, and are we looking at proposing one of these for potential non-renewable energies that may come to Toowoomba region?
It's at the moment, or not at the moment, purely and simply the legislative framework and the regime that applies doesn't permit us to do that. The door has only been opened for the specific types of projects that have been entered into as part of the amendment, being wind, solar and battery energy storage systems. So at this stage, no, because we don't have any legislative imprimatur to do so.
Thank you.
Very good. Any further questions? Councillor Trevor?
Thanks, Mayor. With current operators, we can't backtrack on this policy?
No, we
They're
can't.
out the gate, gone?
Yep, they're grandfathered.
Okay, cool. With the one that's going through at Millmerran, Gen X, which is being held up in a court situation, do they get this, or do they die? It's horses bolted?
Probably, if I could interrupt here, it might be best that we don't talk about a matter that might be subject to other court appeals at the moment.
Okay. I will retract that.
Okay.
Take that one back.
You continue on another question?
Okay, yeah, I was just following up, and you've compared it to other LGAs, which is great, so we're all on a level playing field, which is awesome. It's renewable. When does gas come into this?
When the legislation changes.
I just asked.
Councillor Kerry?
Just a quick one, if I could. Looking at the BESS component, the battery energy storage system, that sort of appears to be sort of double dipping. You've already made the charge for solar or wind, and you're just storing it. But what's the logic justification for charging?
The justification, I guess, would be one that those BESS sites are, in our experience, often not directly co-located with the generators themselves. There's a transmission to the BESS site, as well as they come with their own very discrete series of impacts that are associated with that type of asset. And we've seen that certainly within central Queensland and some of the challenges that local governments are having in that space. So we have applied that differently, recognising, of course, that the power generated by renewables has to be stored, and in this case, we'd be capturing twice. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Edwina?
No, I was just going to comment and say thank you to Ed and Anthony and the team for all the hard work they've done, looking at what other councils are doing across the state, working with the government and making sure that we have a policy that's going to really help our region and make sure that our communities benefit from the wind and solar legacy that's coming their way. So thank you to the team, and if there are no other questions, I'm happy to move the motion, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor McMahon. Any need to go into debate? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, CEO Sal, and all of those present in the room, those watching online. Appreciate your attendance. That concludes our committee meetings for November. Good afternoon.